I've built a few Gauge 1 live steam locomotives so far. This is the next one I'm going to build, and it's going to be scratch built and it's going to be live steam, and I hope you find the series of following videos interesting to watch. Hello and welcome to part 6 of the Gauge 1 Great Western Prairie tank build. Remember we'd left the last episode where we'd put the wheels on, and I mentioned probably that we were going to fit the conrods. And this stage is probably one of the first tricky stages we come to. These have got to be all spot on in terms of their alignment and their distances, because if you get any discrepancies, any differences here, it will bind. So it's quite important we get this right. And these are now running freely. They run just nice. All the wheels are running parallel, no wobble or anything. And these are just a nice turn. There's no tight spots. There's no binding anywhere. The next thing we probably start looking at now is to think about fitting the pistons, making the cylinders. And I've done some drawings. You might remember this was part of our original diagram that we had. Bring that a bit closer there. It probably doesn't show up very well, but there's a rough arrangement of where the piston, where the cylinders will probably go, and say these spacings for the wheels. I've drawn up some drawings, roughly what the pistons will be, cylinders, and the cylinder block. As a starter, I've made a mock-up, and just give me an idea of how it fits. This is the steam chest, and this is the main cylinder block. And with this, I can then start to see where that's going to fit, the best position for that to fit for this conrod here will actually link to the piston rod. So this is quite useful now to get these dimensions correct. I say on the drawings are a little bit vague, so I thought the best thing to do is we'll make a mock-up, and then we can position these exactly where they need to go. What I will be doing these is making these out of a lump of solid brass. I'm going to start some work on the cylinder block now, cylinder blocks. And this is the starting point. I've got 2 lumps of brass, as you can see. And the first thing I'm going to do is just to face them off and get them to the right length. This is nothing fancy. It's really just a shaping of the ends just to get them to the right length. So that's the basic cylinder block now, down to its proper length anyway. What I should do next is mark it out for the shapes for the drilling and for the milling. Okay, here's how far we've got so far, and I hope you can see, the camera's picked this up, that I've same process I used before, just to face the blocks off to the right length. I've put them in the lathe chuck again to get them down to the basic overall X and Y Z dimensions. And you can see also what I've done now is marked out where the cylinder bore is going to be, and this represents basically the profile of what the cylinder will be. So this sort of comes half round as a cut. This will be milled away eventually. Well, we're all set up in the lathe now with the 4-jaw chuck, and I've now got this centered. The next thing to do is to drill a center hole to start the drill off. Well, that's our centre drill hole started, and because the bore diameter is 9/16, I happen to have a 9/16 reamer which will put a nice hole and put a nice finish on the bore. So this is what I'm going to do. You can sometimes bore these out with a boring bar. Run our reamer through, which is the next thing I'm going to do now. And it's just a case of now gently taking the reamer through this bore so we get our finished size. And that's just now opening it out to its final 9/16 diameter and giving us a nice finish inside the bore. Okay, that's the reamer has been all the way through now, so that feels lovely. And just take this out, and we now have a lovely bore in there with a nice precision finish as well, so that's going to be perfect. Well, here's our 2 cylinder blocks now, all bored and reamed out, and they look quite good, those. Well, you've seen, this is how far we've got with the main cylinder block, and what I've turned my attention to now is the steam chest. And as you see from a couple of the pictures there, I've hacked this out of a lump of brass again, and just marked up the cylinder chest and got it down to the size. I've marked it out so ultimately there'll be an angle that comes on here, and this actually, like the top of the cylinder, the top of the steam chest, sits underneath the running board, if you like, the running plate of the locomotive. Got this aperture out, and the simplest way to do that is to do what we call chain drill. Just drill a series of holes round here. I know what else you'll do now is just file around these enough and just knock this centre piece out, and then just file our profile. With the series of holes drilled now in our workpiece, in our chest, steam chest here, it's now just a case of connecting up the holes really so really now just a filing job to file through to each of these holes so I can knock the centrepiece out. As you can see, more or less joined up, filing through all these holes. And what we should be able to do now is just knock this little piece out. There you go. So you see what we have to do now is just take another file and go round. Here's the first steam chest now, and you can see that we now file this out nice and square now to the aperture we want.